Good morning. Gerry Brinkman from BereanNation.com. This morning in my devotions I was reading in Joshua chapters 16 and 17 about the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, and those are the chapters that really outline their territory that they were granted under Joshua's rule, the inheritance given to them by the Lord, basically. And it says something kind of interesting about both tribes. It says that they did not drive the Canaanites completely out of their land, but instead, when they became strong, they turned them into forced laborers. Later, I think when they figured out that that wasn't going to leave them with enough resources, they complained to Joshua. Joshua, you didn't give us enough land. So Joshua told them, well, look, if you need more land, go get more land. Expand outward from the borders of Israel. You know, you're strong. You're the people of God. Go get it. And there was some grumbling that took place, I suspect. Now, I've heard it said by preachers in the past that this makes Ephraim and Manasseh unfaithful, because the command was to completely and utterly wipe out the... I don't know that that's necessarily true, but I do know that no good came of it. You want to know what I'm talking about? Fast forward a number of years, and that number is probably over 1,000. You end up in Jeremiah chapter 8. And it's probably one of the saddest chapters in the Bible. The resulting judgment from following after false and foreign gods actually makes me sad about 3,000 years after that. This is a sort of a direct result, because what God warned them about was allowing foreign people to dwell in your land with their own belief systems, and all of that stuff would tempt you to turn after their gods. And it did just that. Jeremiah 8 verse 20 is perhaps the most disturbing verse of the chapter. And it simply says, harvest is past, summer is ended, and we are not saved. Ouch. And I got to thinking about, why is that? Why do people turn after false gods? I mean, obviously the sin nature that dwells in all of us has something to do with this, but then I read this morning in Matthew chapter 22 about the parable of the marriage feast. And, I'm going to read verse 5. So, the master, just to bring you up to speed with context, the master has prepared a huge wedding feast sent for his son, in fact, and he sent out all of his slaves to call those who were chosen and invited to the wedding, but for whatever reason they were unwilling to come. And so he sent a second time, and he said, look, I've got everything ready, the oxen, the fatted calf, the livestock, everything's butchered, everything's ready, come to the wedding feast. And then it says in verse 5, but they paid no attention and went their way, one to his own farm, another to his business. And the rest seized his slaves and mistreated them and killed them. Verse 7 shows the consequences of mistreating his slaves and killing them. But the king was enraged, and he sent his armies and destroyed those murderers and set their city on fire. Doesn't seem like a really great kind of a response to the king's invitation to beat and kill those who are making the invitations, does it? So he sent his armies and destroyed them. Remember, this is a parable, folks. Parable. Okay? And then he said to his slaves, the wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Go, therefore, into the main highways, as many as you find there. Invite them to the wedding feast. So verse 10 goes on. Those slaves went out into the streets and gathered together all they found, both good and evil, and the wedding hall was filled with dinner guests. Sounds like the party's all ready to happen, right? Well, when the king came in to look over the dinner guests, what? There's an inspection? Apparently there is. But when the king came in to look over the dinner guests, he saw a man there who was not dressed in wedding clothes. And we come to what I see in Christianity, or rather churchianity at present. I think not dressing in wedding clothes speaks of a lack of holiness. We're not walking in sanctification. And listen, I'm going to tell you why I think that. Here in Revelation chapter 7, it says that, talking about these ones that were robed in white, it says, these are the ones that came out of the great tribulation, and they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Okay, so they washed their own robes in this super detergent called the blood of the Lamb. And it's made them white and clean. Okay, so, well, that's one verse, Gerry. Yeah, that's true. Okay, I'm not going to build a theology here, but I'm going to give you some references. During the bowls of wrath being poured out on the earth, in the middle of talking about Armageddon and all of that, there's a parenthetical verse, and the parentheses are John's, not anybody else's. Okay, now, right after the sixth angel had poured and all of these people are coming out, it says, chapter 16, verse 15, behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake and keeps his clothes, so that he will not walk about naked and men will not see his shame. There is an emphasis on keeping one's clothes. Really? Well, that's interesting, because over here it says they washed their own clothes in the robes. Here, the responsibility is to keep one's own clothes. Revelation chapter 19, verses 7 to 9, it says, let us rejoice and be glad and give the glory to him, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. It was given to her to clothe herself in fine linen, bright and clean. For the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. Then he said to me, write, blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said to me, these are true words of God. Yeah. So, if we will not learn holiness, that is, not walking in one's own sanctification that was purchased on the cross in the blood of God-man Jesus himself, well, then some hard questions with hard consequences are going to be asked. And he said to him, going back to Matthew 22, in verse 12, and he said to him, friend, how did you come in here without wedding clothes? And the man was speechless. Then the king said to his servants, bind him hand and foot and throw him into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. You know, it says in another place that he has given us everything pertaining to life and godliness. And as those who he has redeemed, he has justified by faith, it is our responsibility to walk according to that justification. Remember, we talk a lot about in this ministry, a lot about how, we were saved once for all when we were justified through our faith in Christ and our repentance of sin. But, that's justification, and that's when our spirit was saved. There's a whole lot more than that. Okay, because now there's sanctification. This is the process by which you gain the salvation of your soul. And from everything I have read here this morning, right from the scriptures, it's our responsibility to put off that old man and walk in newness of life in Christ. He has given us everything pertaining to life and godliness, and He has given us, as His redeemed, the responsibility for walking in it. And if we won't, hard questions with hard consequences will be asked, because without holiness, no one will see the Lord. Many are called, few are chosen. Maybe you don't agree with me. I didn't ask you to agree with me. I took my stuff this morning out of scriptures, and this is maybe the product of about 12 to 15 minutes worth of reading. This is just showing why we need to study the Word, why we need to fellowship with other believers, why we need to have an active, worshipful faith, and why we need to pray. So, listen, folks, if this has touched you in any way this morning, I encourage you, turn to God and open the scriptures and study them daily to see if these things are so. I'm Gerry. This is BereanNation.com.